We're just past Mother's Day, and we've got the great opportunity now to continue to celebrate women. And today we're going to celebrate women in a remarkable way, which is by having on a guest who has built her life and her coaching business around helping women specifically, not just women, but men as well. But today we're focusing on the women in the real estate industry, helping them to think bigger. She's the author of She Thinks Big. Her podcast is She Thinks Big. And today's guest is all about thinking big. We are excited to introduce her here in just a minute. It's going to be a great episode. If you feel like you're stuck in the messy middle, if you feel like you really want to go from that to extraordinary, this episode's for you. So the big question is this: how do those of us in the real estate industry who have crazy amounts of ambition, how do we think bigger than the building of our own empires? How do we create success and significance, income and impact? My name is Justin Stoddard. This is my co-host, Stephanie Peck. And together, we bring you the Think Bigger. All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm actually without my special co-host today. She's unavailable to be with us, and she's missing out because today we have an amazing guest, Andrea Liebross. I'm so excited to have you here on the Think Bigger Real Estate Podcast. This is a match made in heaven. You help people think bigger, as do I. So excited to get into it with you.
Yes, our podcast should be together more often, right?
That's what I think.
Yeah,
that's what I think. Well, I was fascinated by your topic, by the book that you authored, which is called She Thinks Big. And you really have built your life, career, and mission around helping women to get out of the messy middle and into the extraordinary. And so again, welcome to the show. I'm thrilled to have you here and really dig in and help those women who follow this show, right? Which 62% of all real estate agents are women, right?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It seems like most real estate agents I know are women, but yep, they need help.
Yeah, right. They're fabulous at it, and there's a lot, right? There's a lot on their plate, not just oftentimes in the workforce, but also, the personal life, the home life can be heavy. So let's dive in. Tell me a little bit more about your story. How did you come to this conclusion that you feel like this was your life mission to help women to move out of that messy middle?
Yeah. So in a previous life, what I was doing was really helping women start what on paper were not franchises, but in all reality, they were franchises of this big conglomerate. And I was recruiting and hiring and training them. And I stayed in that position for about 10 years. I don't know why I stayed 10 years, but when I reflected back, what I realized, the part I loved the most was helping them through that messy middle stage of business. So my parent company there would have called it training, but what was really happening was coaching. And these women had started this new business with enthusiasm and excitement, as most people do. And then they started to get into it, felt a little bit of success, maybe even more success than they thought was going to happen. And then things started to get complicated and what I now have termed messy, in the sense that, it didn't necessarily feel exciting anymore. It felt complicated. It felt heavy. They felt like the obligations that they had to their family or other parts of their lives might have been suffering because of all the time they were putting into their business. So should they be putting it in? Should they not? Is this really the best fit? We could go on, but helping them kind of get through that initial messy middle. Now, the bad news is there's messy middles to come, at each stage of business growth, but helping them work through that. And I think the think bigger part occurred for me personally, because I realized that when I was in that role that I was describing, I was kind of in a box, and there were a lot of rules and there were a lot of regulations and there were a lot of situations where I would say, hey, why don't we do this? Or should we approach it that way? And the powers that be would say, great idea, Andrea. And then nothing would ever happen. And so that was really discouraging and frustrating. And so when I looked back on it, I realized what was happening is that I was being kept in this sort of container, this small container, and wasn't allowed to think beyond what was currently happening or explore what might be possible if we changed something up or tried something new. So I that's kind of how all of this came together. So right now what I do is I no longer work for them. I work for myself. And I help primarily women all over the world really grow businesses that feel good to them, that align with who they want to be, that align with who they want to be in their personal lives as well. So we do business coaching, but I always say I'm also a kind of a life balance architect,
Hmm.
because life gets in the way or gets intertwined. I don't think it gets in the way. Sometimes it feels like it does, but it gets intertwined with growing your business. And you've really got to stay in that think bigger mindset in order to continue to create. So that was kind of a long answer, but
You
there you
know,
go.
it was great. You know, I grew up with a very entrepreneurial mom, and I was always amazed at how well she balanced it all. And I don't know that, um, you know, I think some women are naturally better at it than others, but I think that
Mhm.
the mom guilt thing is real, right? Is that
Yeah.
even when I talk to my mom now, she's like, "Oh, I made so many mistakes. Like I'm always amazed that my kids have turned out so well despite their mother." Like this kind of like talk, and I'm
Yes.
like, and yet from the outside, again, she built a seven-figure business,
Yeah.
and she did it with being at everything that mattered to us. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like the perception of her failing
Mhm.
completely erroneous, right? From all the people that
Yeah.
matter. Like me and my
Yeah.
siblings, you should have heard the tributes that were coming to my mom on Mother's a few days ago. We're like,
Yeah.
you changed our world and our posterity forevermore, right? And so, even though I think oftentimes women they don't give themselves enough credit, and or they live in that space of I'm not doing enough too much, which is a
Mhm.
real inhibitor, even if it's not to their progress, which I think it is that as well. It's an inhibitor to their own happiness of while they're in the journey of they're doing way better than they think they are, right? I mean, have you found
Yeah.
that in the women that you coach?
100%. And I think that if we're talking about real estate and specifically, your job really does span, it can span 7 days a week. It can be
Mhm.
24 hours a day. I mean, things can happen at any moment, right? So that is, on one hand, a lot of women get into real estate because I have a bunch of real estate clients. They get into it thinking about the flexibility of it all,
Mhm.
right? I'm sure you hear this. And what they learn kind of quickly is that it doesn't feel so flexible. It doesn't feel like they are in charge of their own time at all. So, it's days and nights and weekends. And this discussion of how to grow a business, but also get to the soccer game, right? Or
Mhm.
be there when the kids get off the bus is real. It's real. And it creates a lot of anxiety. It creates a lot of self-doubt. And I think honestly, sometimes that those thoughts get in the way of you actually your happiness and you taking actions towards being happier in a sense,
Yeah.
right? So it's an interesting path there. And so what I do with my clients is when I start working with someone, we do a vision. I call it a vision into action intensive. So, vision into action. So, if you have this vision of having a career that is going to allow for flexibility, and I'm just going to say, side note, like 99.99% of professions and jobs out there allow for flexibility, just in case you didn't know. But anyway, right? So if you've got this vision that this is going to be flexible and you're going to be able to do all the things, how do we turn that literally into some action steps? And what needs to happen, or who do you need to be, or what do you need to be thinking in order for that to happen?
Talk us through where you start, right? If it's about
Yep.
having a vision, um, do you have ideas for people that are listening here today to say, you know what, um, what could it look like?
Hmm.
Because like you said, sometimes we put some unrealistic inhibitors on what those dreams and visions could look like because we're too boxed into our current reality versus what could be our reality,
Yes.
right? How
Yeah.
how do you help people get past that to really start to dream again and to really
Yes.
think big?
So I think first, you have to I like to say, I like to go as far as 10 years out. And I know that seems like a really long time, way, far, far away. But 10 years out, okay, where do you want to be living? What are you going to be doing with your time? Who are you going to be with? Okay. Now, if we're talking about women here, a lot of times I just want to be the best mom I can be. I want my kids to grow up, and be amazing. And to your point with your mom, okay, she's thinking of all the things now that, she could have done differently, right? But you're thinking,
She was amazing.
it was amazing, right? It
Yeah,
was
she was so
amazing.
good. She was
Right.
so good.
Right. So I sometimes start with I call it a belief plan. Okay. So everybody knows what an action plan is. Everybody knows what like a time plan is. When is something going to happen by what date? But we also need a belief plan. So
Mm.
you really need to believe that your kids are going to turn out okay, that everything's going to be fine. Like, you really have to believe that, whether or not you are at the soccer game at 10 soccer games or you're only at 7 soccer games, everybody's going to be okay. My gut check is always like, is everybody still alive? Like, yes. Okay. So you have to have this belief plan. And if you have a belief plan, let's just use the soccer game, for example, because it's easy. If you have a belief plan that if you make it to 7 out of 10 games, that's going to be perfect, then your belief plan is kind of going to help you formulate your to-do list. So I like to say the to believe list is really the new to-do list. So if you believed that 7 out of 10 soccer games was perfect, then what are you going to do today? You're going to figure out, okay, which 7 am I getting to? And which 3 am I not going to go to? Because maybe I'm working on my business. Maybe I'm meeting a client, like who knows, right? Maybe I'm doing the open house, right? And I'm going to miss one.
Yeah.
So the to believe list really turns into the to-do list, or you could throw away your to-do list. I like to say, I know this is kind of drastic, but you could throw away your to-do list and just have this to believe list, because the to believe list is going to create your to-do list.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah. So what I hear you saying is actually start with the ideal. What is it that you
Yeah.
actually want? And
Right.
rather than, again, trying to stay within the current context of your current reality, say, no, here's what I believe will create
Yes.
the best form of me.
Right.
And then start building your actual what goes into your calendar based on that versus what you think has to be in there.
Yes, exactly. So I'll give you a more minute example. So I have a real estate client. She's actually excellent at social media. She loves it. Like, she's good at it.
Mm.
She creates it all herself. It attracts clients. She has proof that some of her clients come from social media. But she was getting this like talk in her office that she really needed to send out more mail, like snail mail. Okay. And I said to her, do you believe that your clients are going to come from snail mail? And she said, no. I actually really believe that me putting more time and effort into social media is going to drive more
Mm.
business. And I said, okay, so if we believe that, what do you need to do? What needs to go on your to-do list? And she's like, just get busy on the social media and forget about the mailers. So that, even though she felt like she should have mailers on her list, like that's what you're supposed to do or whatever, that to believe list really is the guiding force. So you might say, okay, so Andrea, how do you even know what you should believe? Like,
Great question.
okay, how do we
Yeah.
even know what I should believe? So now I say you should go to future you. Okay. You need to go meet future you. So future you is a version of you. And I'm even going to say like 3 to 5 years from now. Okay. Future you is the person who feels, I do get into the feeling piece of it. Like, how do you want to feel in your business, as a business owner, as a parent, as a spouse, as a friend, as a daughter? How do you want to feel? Okay. What is that going to look like? So then we can get into some tangibles. My business is going to be this big. I'm going to close, have this many transactions, whatever. Okay. If that Now go talk to that future you, the person that has those things is feeling that way. Go ask her what she thinks you should believe and or do today. Okay. 99.9% of the time, what someone comes back with is, well, future you knows that going to 7 out of the 10 soccer games was perfect, and future you knows that doing the open house was 100% worth it. Okay, so what would future you tell you to do today? They would tell you to get busy going to open houses and, marking your calendar on what games you're going to go to. So future you always knows the answer. We get stuck in decisions. Like we get bogged down. This is part of messy middle in decision making. It consumes us. We kind of spin around in it. But if you just go ask future you what the decision should be, what you should decide or which way to go, they're going to tell you. And 9 times out of 10, that feels maybe a little scary, but it feels right. So future you is really the person to meet.
I love that because at the end of the day, that I think Ed Milet reinforced a story that we've probably all heard before. I got a chance to hear him speak recently, and he talked about how the definition of hell is if you meet future you,
Yes.
and future you is your potential,
Yep.
and you like he doesn't recognize you, like you're so far different. Whereas future heaven is if it's like, yeah, like you meet your potential and it's similar. And what I hear you saying is that it's really going out into the future to say that potential, that really happy person that you aspire to be in 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Let them decide, not with our very kind of blinders on, short-term vision, like
Yep.
this very emotional, I can't make it to that game, but step back and say, ultimately, what am I trying to achieve here? And what's the very best that I can do? And that's great. That's enough, right?
Yes, that's exactly. It's like, it's the potential you. I like that. Because past you, I like to say past you can be a teacher, but it's not a fortune teller, right? It's not predicting what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
Present you is just trying to get through the day, right? So you are really in that microcosm. Future you, excuse me, is the only one that really has perspective of what's possible or what the potential is.
I had a really fun experience. I don't know if I'd call it fun. I ran a triathlon, first time in several years that I've run a triathlon this past weekend.
Okay,
And,
congrats. I've done Olympic triathlon, so I don't know what yours was, but
it
was
was
it a real
sprint.
one? Was it the real deal?
It was a
Oh,
sprint.
sprint.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It was for, little mini triathlete. And I was coming through the transition from the bike to the run. My
Okay.
7-year-old daughter was waiting there for me, and she's kind of distracted playing on the grass. And I called out to her. I said, Maisie. And she gets up so excited. And I said, she'd had signs ready, the whole deal. She starts running beside me. And the question that she asked me, it was the most beautiful thing. She said, Dad, are you proud of yourself?
See?
It was adorable. And I was like, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
And then I asked her the question. I said, Maisie, are you proud of me? And she said, yeah, I am, Dad. She's 7, right? It's just absolutely adorable. So I had the next 3 miles to contemplate on that. Like, am I doing stuff that makes me proud of myself? And it was like, yeah, I'm doing hard things. I'm stretching myself. And probably as importantly, am I making those who I love the most in life proud as well, right? And I think that future self interview that you're talking about would say, Justin, are you doing things that make you proud? Are you doing things that make your kids proud? If so, hey, don't stress, man. Like, relax.
Right. It's all going to work out. It's all going to work out. I think it's hard to stay in this mindset though. Like it's hard to hold those thoughts. And that's where I think having support is so important, whether it's someone holding a sign, because that was kind of a form of support there, right?
Totally.
Or someone in your daily life, that's there, reminding you of what's possible and reminding you of how you want to feel and show up. So that's perfect. I love that example.
So talk us through, I know we just have a few minutes left. And by the way, I want to let everybody know that Andrea wrote a book. I think I said that once before, but I'm going to put the name of it down here going across the bottom of your screen for those that are watching the video version of this. She Thinks Big, the Entrepreneurial Women's Guide to Moving Past the Messy Middle and into the Extraordinary. So if you're liking what you hear and you're like, I think I could have a little more Andrea in my life, then let's go find her book. Where's the best place to get it? On Amazon or where's
Amazon, whatever your favorite bookseller is. Yeah. Sometimes people say, can I have a little like FBI thing in my ear, the you talking to me? You can listen to it on audiobook too.
There you go. You can also find her on Instagram at Andrea Liebross coaching. So be sure and follow her there. Andrea, as we wrap up, I know we just have a few minutes, but I think this concept of having your future you interview you is a beautiful concept. what happens when you get into that messy middle? Like, how do you get out of that? Right. I think that's maybe this thinking big. You've helped us to do that. And I know you also have expertise in the systems to actually
Yeah,
move through that, right?
right.
What are some of your favorite systems that people implement to help them to actually get through the messy middle when maybe the kind of the luster of their vision has been tarnished just a
Yeah.
little bit or worn off a little bit?
Right. So I think it is important to go back to your belief plan if you have one.
Okay.
Okay. So, but let's pretend you didn't do that. But having a belief plan is helpful. And then I think what you need to do is your brain wants to take action. It wants to do something.
Mhm.
And all you really need to do is, I call it the next best step. Like, what is the next best step? What is one small thing? Okay. So in order, though, to take any steps, you really have to contemplate, how do you want to feel? So all of our actions are triggered by a feeling. Like, no matter what anyone wants to argue about it, you with me, you want to argue, I'm up for it. Feelings trigger actions and thoughts trigger feelings. Okay.
Okay.
So if you're having a hard time, like, getting out of this messy middle, you're
Mhm.
stuck there. Okay. You kind of have to say to yourself, what do I want to feel like tomorrow? And if you said, okay, I want to feel confident tomorrow. Okay. What do you need to think in order to create that feeling of confidence? Or I want to feel excited again tomorrow. What do you need? What's a thought? And I like to say, you've got thought options. It's like a tray of hors d'oeuvres. You can choose any thought on the tray. What's one thought that's going to create that excitement or that confidence so that you can take that next step? So it's the system piece of it. I mean, and we could get into like software and people and all these things. We could totally go down that route. But the what's really going to drive that next action is one single thought. So if your single thought is, what do I know how to do? Like, I know how to have a conversation. Okay. So what do you need to think? I know how to have a conversation. Feel confidence in that action, have the conversation. Right. So if you start thinking, I don't know who to talk to, well, that's not going to create any confidence, right? And that's not going to lead for you to have the conversation. So you've got to kind of grasp one little thought that is going to give you some sort of feeling that will trigger the next best step action.
I love it. So our thoughts trigger our feelings, and our feelings trigger our actions, and ultimately actions are what propel us to what we want to become, right?
Right. The result. I like to say, like, how you show up in the world,
Mhm.
or, the bottom line. My dad always says, that's the bottom
Mhm.
line. Like, what does it lead to? And that, whatever that leads to, whatever the result is, that result or how you show up or the bottom line is always evidence of a thought.
Mhm.
It is always evidence of a thought. So choosing the right thought, like off a tray of hors d'oeuvres, is key.
Boy, I love that. I have a coaching client right now who's working through some of the messy middle right now, and I'm going to share this with them when we're done, because I think that's where the rubber meets the road, is when things don't go ideal, where there's difficult
Yeah.
circumstances we go through, and we're like, this isn't working, right? And it's like, nope,
Right.
go back to the thought. What are you thinking that's causing you to feel a certain way? And that feeling is driving your action one way or the other, right?
Yep.
Um, it's much more
Love it.
simple than we think it is, especially if we have great people like Andrea speaking into our ear. And so be sure and get her book, listen to her podcast. Andrea, it's been such a pleasure to have you here. I'm a big fan of all the good that women can do in the world. And I know we're not just talking to women, it's everybody.
It's everybody.
But I do believe that the greatest untapped natural resource in the world is human potential. And having people like you who are out helping to tap into that, helping to mine that and bring that forward is a beautiful thing. So I appreciate so much you joining us and sharing your expertise here on the Think Bigger Real Estate Podcast.
Thanks
And
for having me.
yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you for pouring into us today. And my final request of everybody listening here today are these three simple words. You know what they are. Go think bigger. Thanks for helping us today, Andrea. Talk soon.
Thank you.
Before you go, we've got one more invitation for you. We all know that listening to a podcast is not enough to help you to become a big thinker and high achiever. We must take action. So the very first step, think about one aha one lesson learned from this podcast that you'd like to apply, and send it to us in the form of a direct message at Think Bigger Real Estate. We look forward